Good afternoon, fans. We are live on The Hannibal TV on YouTube. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and I'm here today sitting in for the very busy Hannibal doing his UFO drone research and reports in that crazy situation. But I'm here to do Dave Meltzer's Weekly Wrestling Observer review. And I got to be honest, I took copious notes because there seemed to be a lot of meat in this week's report. And I'm just going to go through it as per the tradition. The items in the Observer that we cover here are the items that we find interesting here at the Hannibal TV. So be interested in your feedback as well. If you have any sort of question or comment, please feel free to do so. And I'll just answer a question here first. Screaming Baboon asks, is that Pat Tanaka a goal for February? I have been in contact with Pat. He said he had some commitments to take care of first in terms of signings and appearances, and he would let me know. So I'm not going to drop that one. I'll be sure to get that done, being a huge fan of his work in Bad Company in the AWA and, of course, Orient Express in WWF and WCW. But let's jump into this, or it could be a rather lengthy report. Barely 2 months after the ink dried on AEW's 3-year, $555 million television streaming deal, Meltzer reports that the business news on the promotion has been mostly negative. He says ratings, which he goes into great detail later on in the Observer, and I won't because math is not my strong suit. I'm not really all that interested in ratings, but he said they have been very much lower than last year at this time, with a strong decline in the key demo of 18 to 34. He says the situation is bad. It's just a case of, can it be turned around, and if so, how? He states that AEW is no longer seen as a viable competitor to the WWE, which is a big problem, thinking back to those glory years, quote unquote, with the huge shows. He interestingly, though, states that the thing about the decline about AEW, which hasn't really been as pushed to the forefront, is that television ratings, except the WWE main program, are also down. He cites NXT drawing weak crowds and ratings on the road. Same for New Japan. TNA has had some bright spots this year, but the ratings are still not good. And he also comments this is historically how it is at the tail end of a wrestling war, and drew some comparisons to WCW and WWF in that post 2001 period, where they did themselves no favors with the invasion angle and others, but it's not atypical to see ratings decline across the board. He's saying the one factor that they need to get back again is the cool factor. Maybe sign some more established talents, but he's also saying that that's not going to be a guarantee either, but somehow get the audience's attention again with, he says they have to get stars who are cool to develop media relations where AEW is more visible in some places, more places, and more importantly, not portrayed as a loser brand, which he says is incredibly damaging, obviously. And I would add that which Hannibal has spoken of many times as well, the tendency to false advertise their shows and not have the same talent on the poster that appears is also very damaging. But we're going to see they're at least secure until 2027 with their current rights deal, and could very much continue on the path that they have been doing. But after that, who knows? So it'll be an interesting few years after that. Meltzer also mentioned last night, Saturday night's main event returning to the airwaves, and talked about how the first Saturday night's main event was headlined by Hogan against Bob Orndorff Jr. for the WWF title of Piper's Pit with Paul Orndorff, and Wendy Richter versus the Fabulous Moolah for the women's title, and it drew an 8.8 rating, which was very successful. He speculated as to how the current offering would do, and also mentioned the reboots in the Cena era of the 2000s were not ratings successes in any way, shape, or form. But he's saying it's a different audience right now. It would have made sense to have Hogan as a part of it, but given the fact that he is still a controversial figure, they probably wisely left it out. He also mentioned the return of Jesse the Body that I saw a clip for this morning. It seems the critical reviews or the fan reviews of the show were that it was good, although some of the matches, well, actually all the matches were quite short. Ventura's performance was praised, and he's apparently signed on to be a part of the program for the next 4 episodes, possibly more. So I've always been a big fan of Jesse, and it's nice to see him back, as he started his comments last night for the first time in 40 years. So that's quite a big chunk of time. So we'll see how the ratings do. I may have missed that this morning, but it seemed like there was sufficient buzz online. A lot of people saying that it was a good program. I'll have to check it out myself. Zack Sabre Jr., a darling of Japan, became only the second foreigner in the 51-year history of the Tokyo Sports publication to be awarded the MVP honors. The win makes Sabre the first foreigner to win MVP, G1, and IWGP titles, and he did that all in the same year. The only other foreigner to take this honor was Bob Sapp in 2002, who was a huge mainstream celebrity. And Meltzer comments that there was never which I'm not really sure of, honestly. When I read that, I kind of scratched my head on it, but he said no foreign pro wrestler fighter was ever bigger in Japan than Bob Sapp. Immediately, the Road Warriors sprang to mind, the Funks, Hanson, Gordy, Dr. Death, but I'm not sure how he gauged that. Maybe I'm mistaken, but it didn't really ring true to me. Sabre said, of all the things I wish to achieve this year, I thought Tokyo Sports MVP was the hardest to attain, he said, and also it was the greatest achievement, one of the greatest achievements, not only of his career, but his entire life. So good for him. I'm not really very familiar with his work, but what I have seen, he's an impressive athlete. He's got a number of good years left. Apparently he's only 37, and I'm sure AEW probably are looking to bring him into the fold somehow. MSB says the Body turned Damien into a jacket. Yes, that was a classic throwback as well. It was announced on December 11th that a new MMA promotion, which lists a number of former UFC names on its roster, will be debuting in a team format. Darren Owens heads the promotion called the Global Fight League, and he's got, let me go over the names here. Names announced for the new league were former UFC champions Tyson Woodley, Anthony Pettis, Benson Henderson, Junior Del Santos, Luke Rockhold, Andre Arlovski, who I liked back in the day, and Frank Mir. And he says all were major fighters and champions, but are long since past their primes. He says, Meltzer says that the company will prioritize fighter health and pay 50% of all fight-specific revenue to the fighters. And then he says paying half of event revenue means nothing in a period where live gates can't carry a promotion. Even if they include television revenue, it will be tough early on because getting a television deal for a new MMA concept hasn't worked historically. So we'll have to see about that. I've kind of fallen off following MMA in the last few years. I think they've got some crisis in terms of draws. Dana White apparently was asked about Conor McGregor's situation with that civil judgment against him and basically blew it off and said he hasn't fought in UFC for how long, and if he fights again, it will be not for a while anyway. So it appears that he's trying to distance himself from perhaps one of his remaining bona fide draws, albeit infamous now. Meltzer then goes into talk about one of the biggest questions that the team there received is what happens to the archives of the WWF outside of the US with the move to Netflix, of which those of us in Canada are definitely asking as well. And he reported that according to Netflix, it appears there will be some archive programming on the markets outside the US, but will be a far cry from what the network has and what Peacock has even. So access to much of the library is unfortunately gone with the Netflix move. I know they recently rolled out, Jake Walker smartened me up to a YouTube channel, which seems to have a lot of content on it. I think it's called WWE Vault or something along those lines. Hoping that stays because there's some really, really interesting material on there, classic-wise. Some of the Saturday night's main events. Wrestle Rock from the AWA is on there, and some good interview stuff as well. So we'll have to see. The 6th season of The Dark Side of the Ring, for which the godfather of the Hannibal TV, Hannibal, was on last season, will be debuting on the 25th of March. And a new show called Dark Side of the Cage about MMA. So that's something that people have been talking about for a while. Slam Wrestling is reporting that the episodes of the new season would be on superstar Billy Graham, Eddie Gilbert, Andrew Tess Martin, Daphne, Billy Jack Haynes. That'll be an interesting one, and one that people have been clamoring for, so to speak, for a while. Vader, Ludwig Borga, Tony Halm, and Hell in a Cell. He's saying that these episodes are planned, and Jim Ross has done interviews for one on Mick Foley. Meltzer then states that he is also on some of the episodes for the season. So I know Dark Side of the Ring is somewhat of a polarizing topic, but I think they've done some really good work in their seasons and shed some light on some of the more interesting topics of the business, and even obscure. Like I'm thinking about the one on Chris Colt last season. That was some good stuff. So for our Canadian audience, Ron Hutchison, who wrestled in the 80s out of Toronto and ran a very famous school as a trainer, will be awarded for his work as a trainer by the Tragos Thez Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa. He trained wrestlers first with Sweet Daddy Siki and later ran his own out of the famed Sully's Gym in Toronto, which I remember back in the 80s on the Saturday afternoon wrestling programs, that being advertised and trying to get my name in there. Among the wrestlers he trained were Adam Copeland, Christian Cage, Trish Stratus, Gail Kim, Tracy Brooks, Beth Phoenix, Joey Legend, and Tiger Ali Singh. So good for Ron, great guy. Interviewed a number of his former trainees, and they have nothing but praise for him. Meltzer then goes on to the strange story that he characterizes the Jane Cargill injury mystery. He's saying in recent weeks, we've had multiple people internally say she's injured, as in the Angle, and others that weren't sure. Later, other folks have said that she's injured and others say she isn't. So it sounds like it's a dog's breakfast. He said, I got a pretty detailed description from someone high on the food chain of what happened, and they said she is absolutely injured and seeing WWE doctors for it and other medical professionals. Nobody seems to understand why the other story of what they quote unquote know is going around. So hopefully she'll be back in the ring soon for WrestleMania, but it seems like that's a gigantic question mark. In another injury story, Charlotte Flair is supposed to be returning soon, with Meltzer reporting it could be as early as this coming week. She already teased that a few weeks ago she has been in training in the ring for her return from a torn ACL and other knee injuries. So that'll be good to have her back. She definitely is a cornerstone of that women's division. Interestingly, Meltzer is reporting that, and I'll quote him here so I don't mess it up, with the Janelle Grant lawsuit against Vince McMahon back on, Grant's attorney is releasing a statement saying, and I quote, "We are pleased that the prosecutors of the Southern District of New York have concluded that they can continue their criminal investigation while we bring forward new evidence in our civil case about the sexual exploitation carried out by Grant's abusers. For the last 6 months, Ms. Grant has patiently waited to hold Vince McMahon, Johnny Laurinaitis, and the WWE accountable for sex trafficking and abuse she endured at the company on a near daily basis. Her wait is now over, and we look forward to sharing Ms. Grant's story." The attorney for McMahon responded and said, quote, "Ms. Grant's representative's self-serving statement is, as usual, factually incorrect and intellectually dishonest." So that appears to be one that will go on for a very long time on both the civil and the criminal front. And hopefully the reporting, I know the reporting of that particular story, especially when it first broke, and I'm not saying Meltzer, but there was a lot of conflicting information about, I remember at the time that Johnny Ace was not on Team McMahon, then came back to Team McMahon. So it'll be good to have it concluded finally, as it clearly is a black eye on the industry. Sammy Boy Smith is saying, "BS, I want to see a lie detector test for Miss Grant." Not sure if they would do that in a civil matter, perhaps in a criminal, but yeah, it's going to be something that will probably allow for the cementing of Vince McMahon's legacy as the world's greatest promoter or not, or a sex offender. There's a lot on the line, and it's easily going to be one or the other at this point in time. Wanted to mention that we have some exciting news coming up that was released yesterday, and that is the fact that Hannibal, the death dealer, with myself managing him, will be at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, May the 3rd, 2025, for this match up. One and done, the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance loaded show. The entire card was released yesterday, and it's going to be a good one, with the addition of Hannibal versus Super Crazy in a no gimmicks match. And if you've caught the statement by Chubby Dudley Bay Ragney on this channel that we clipped and released, he's telling one story which is false. It boils down to the fact that while we were undertaking the negotiations for the match, we had certain assurances given to us, and we were basically double-crossed and screwed over. But Hannibal and I will be addressing this situation in detail on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Hannibal TV this week, where we go after and go into the news of the week, not related to all the UFO drone activity, but the pro wrestling mixed martial arts news of the week. And we're going to be talking about this, but I will say this: they, being Joel Goodhart and Chubby Dudley, may think that they outsmarted the gentleman and Hannibal, but they're going to find out that we have a plan. We have many plans. We have backup plans on backup plans. And as I stated, the ECW Mexican legend, superstar, Super Crazy, he better have his affairs in order come May the 3rd, 2025 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the 2300 former ECW Arena. Tickets for this, I would suggest you grab fast. They're in the link to the description of this video. And the WrestleCon 2, which will happen earlier in the day, is just going to be a tremendous event with many, many stars there as well. So tune into that this coming Wednesday on the Hannibal TV this week, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central. And yes, obviously we have the most intelligent wrestling fans in the world here on the Hannibal TV, as MSB points out. Run Super Crazy Run. Yes, I think it's going to be a literal situation where Super Crazy is never the same again, if he's the same, period. But that's it for now, fans. I'll be popping on throughout the week with news updates as they arise, and including future installments of Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer. Hope you liked this. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe to The Hannibal TV on YouTube. You will get content, as you've seen, almost constant content from Hannibal about the breaking news around the UFO drone situation. And we're going to continue to provide you with the pro wrestling content that everyone loves. So please hit that notifications button and you won't miss anything. Have a tremendous afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos,